Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another market update for Southwest Florida. We're going to be focusing on Lee and Collier counties this week, and we're going to be specifically focusing on the months from May to June. So we just got those stats over this past week, so we can really see the trends, how everything has been changing, whether or not those headlines that you're probably reading about and hearing about all over the news, all over social media are in fact true, or if there is a shift that's been happening towards the downside. So we're going to be looking at that today. We're also going to be talking about, since the Fed has just had their recent meeting, they are starting to get some confidence that they're moving towards the 2% mark. So stick around to the end because I'm going to be going over what all the stats and data really means for you as buyers and sellers and how that's going to translate into your next moves moving forward the next couple months. So jumping right in, we have the median sales price is $450,000. It's down 4.3% compared to last month, which was at around $470,000. However, if you look back at the trends here, we had our peak back in April at $482,000 for the year, and that was actually higher than last year at 2023. The same time period, and also higher than it was back in 2022. These are the cycles that we're seeing throughout the year. Down here in Southwest Florida, as you move throughout the year, there's season. A lot of people do buy in season, so we usually see prices increase, and then afterwards we see prices come down because less people are buying. Therefore, more people have to compete, and that usually brings lower prices with it. From 2019 all the way through, you can see the prices has really skyrocketed. However, we're kind of starting to flatline here, and again, that kind of is on target with what the Fed's been trying to do. They're trying to keep the inflation rate down. However, they're also trying to, maintain the housing market and not let it crash like it did in 2008. So this is kind of playing into what their narrative has been and what their goals have been over the last couple of years. It looks like things are starting to actually, level out a little bit. We may be going into a soft landing. However, a lot's up in the air. The election's coming up, so we don't really know where things are headed next. Moving on to closed sales, nothing really significant here as far as, historically. We're kind of right in line with where things were historically outside of the, 2 or 3 years there where we had, COVID crisis and real estate really went crazy out of the norms. But we're kind of back into the typical cycles that we saw before all that happened. New listings, I know there's been a lot of concern on the internet and headlines and the news, as well as, all the social media platforms, especially YouTube. We did actually hit an all-time, almost an all-time high for new listings this past January in 2024, where we're at 5,258. However, as you can see, we've really gone down quite a bit since then. And we're now at 3133. Again, this is right in line with the cycles prior to 2020. So 2019, 2018, 2017 all had very similar peaks and lows to where we're at, and around the same time period. So this is back in June was our low, and we're hitting a low right now. We'll have to see if that low stays there, if it does bounce a little bit and come back up like it did in previous years, but it has gone lower, and we'll have to keep an eye on that as well. New pending sales, we are down 9% from last month. So 2149 new pending sales is how many buyers are in the market right now actually putting homes under contract. We're starting to get back into the same thing. The theme here this month is back into the cycle. Active inventory has been a major concern for people because the more inventory that's on the market, the lower prices usually will go. There was a lot of speculation going on that because inventory was rising so much so quickly that we were going to have prices really falling and crashing. Now, prices definitely have come down in quite a few markets here. However, they have not come down as much as people would make you think. You see a lot of YouTube videos where people are showing you $100,000 decreases on homes. Most of those homes, they decreased so much because they were so much overpriced. For those people who are pricing things correctly with the market, things are really leveling off. So you want to price on par with the market. If things are rising with a rising market, you want to price ahead of the market. So you would price it a little bit higher. However, most sellers haven't caught up to the fact that the prices have started to decline. And again, as we look at this inventory, you can see it's been declining since March. So we did hit our peak in March, which was fairly high considering, the last 3 years. If you go back to the cycles beforehand, we didn't even come back up to the peak, which was 17,000 listings in these two counties, Lee and Collier County. Now, taking a look at the month's supply of inventory, just to preface it, 6 months of supply is considered a balanced market. It's neither favoring buyers nor sellers. So right now we're at 6.6. So in this case, it would be slightly skewed towards a buyer's market. However, 6 months of inventory right now, and it's starting to go up a little bit, but it was back in January, it was at 9.4, which is definitely a buyer's market. And that is why prices have either maintained themselves or come down in quite a few markets. As we've gone through since January, February, March, we went down. There was less inventory compared to the amount of buyers that were going in. So that's what month's supply of inventory is showing you. How many buyers can put homes under contract for how long before we run out of inventory? So in this case, it's 6.6 months if people kept putting homes under contract at the rate that they are. Now, the fact that it is going up means that it's slowing down some. So buyers are starting to slow down putting homes under contract. Now, if that continues rising, then we're going to see the market start to skew more towards a buyer's market. However, we really only have 1 or 2 months left until the Fed possibly makes their rate cut. And if that does happen, then we're probably going to see the market start to head the other way, where prices start to increase again. And that is not what the Fed wants. But if we start to go into this soft landing that they've been trying to do, then that might just be the balanced market we stay in. We stay in something around 6 months of supply of inventory, which is a healthy market. The only problem with this is that the market is unhealthy because of the wages for people. This article is out of Bloomberg. The US housing crisis is really about low wage jobs, which is what I just mentioned. So price and income, those are the two things, right? You can afford a house at $400,000 if you're making over $100,000 or $120,000 a year, right? It's not that bad. However, the incomes have not stayed up to date with the prices of everything else: groceries, energy, homes, all that stuff has gone through the roof. Wages have only modestly started to increase over the last couple of years. You can really easily look at that when you zoom in here. Median income now is $39,000 right now in the United States. Median new home now is $409,000 across the US. Now, if we look at the median income in 2000, it was $31,000. So the last 24 years, it's only gone up $8,000, not even, while the home increases have been over $250,000. So that's what we're dealing with, is the fact that income has really only gone up a little bit, $8,000, and home prices have gone up $250,000. So there's a huge gap there, and that's where the disconnect is. Now, this article also goes into where can we get more supply from, and there are quite a few viable solutions. Whether or not they'll actually be used is another thing. One of the viable solutions, expanding the low-income housing tax credit, so that would be supporting public housing as well as religious institutions to build on their land. That's kind of a double-edged sword there, because everybody wants affordable housing, everybody wants low-income housing available for people. They just don't want it in their neighborhood, right? You don't want it to bring down your home values, so you vote against it. The other thing is reform zoning rules, building codes, and property taxes. About 2 or 3 years ago, when the pandemic first hit, I first mentioned the fact that commercial real estate buildings, a lot of them were going to be going vacant. They did end up going vacant because of COVID, and you could work from home. And now that is all starting to come to fruition, with those commercial real estate loans starting to come due to actually be readjusted for their interest rates. That's causing a lot of issues on the banks. One of the things that some of the cities have been doing is rezoning those for and trying to reutilize those for residential real estate. So that's a big process, trying to turn a skyscraper into residential real estate from office space or from manufacturing space, things like that. So it's a big conversion. It does cost a lot of money, but I think ultimately that's where we're going. If anybody's seen Ready Player One, you saw people were living in storage containers, ship storage containers that they were building on top of each other, but they stacked them really high like skyscrapers. And that's, I think, kind of where we're going, is that's going to become residential real estate, because I don't see the mandates to come back to work really working that well, especially with where technology is heading and all that stuff. So zoning rules, building codes, property taxes. Property tax is another big one. And I know down here in Florida specifically, home insurance is a huge one. But there are quite a few things in the work right now to lower insurance costs. New companies are coming into the state. That's great news. So we are starting to see some of that stuff start to shift finally and start to pay off. But it is going to take some time for that all to really unfold. One of the things that a lot of people are concerned about is foreclosures rising. There have been, some news stories that have come out. I know Adam Data put out one a couple weeks ago about foreclosures starting to rise in the state of Florida. But we're not even in the top 5 states where foreclosures are starting to rise. And the amount that they've risen is nowhere near where it was back in 2005 or 2004 before the crash. So we're not seeing those kind of crazy levels. Even back 2017, 2018, when the market was considered healthy, we saw, we're at 2%, 3% for foreclosure rates or distressed properties. Right now, we're at 0.1, 0.4%. things have been kind of increasing a tiny bit. So we are starting to see some of those properties come on, but it's nowhere near where it would need to be for prices to come down a lot. For you buyers, one of the things that's been in the news recently, especially over the last couple of weeks, is 70% or so of the market is pricing in a rate cut in September. And what is that going to do for the market? What is that going to mean for you as a buyer? Unless the amount of inventory really increases a lot, you are going to be back into a market where there's competition. There's a lot more buyers entering the market. Because don't forget, part of the reason why buyers aren't buying as much and sellers aren't selling as much is because of where interest rates are. If I want to sell my home and I have a 2.64 and I have a client who has a 2.64% rate, I'm not going to sell that unless, I really want to move or really have to move. So that's the same thing. Sellers aren't going to be selling until they do. But when interest rates start to come down, now all those sellers who've been waiting and putting it off, they're like, oh, okay, this isn't so bad. I can afford a $2,000 a month payment. Now I can move. That's going to bring in inventory. And then because at the same time, now buyers can afford more and they can get more for their dollar. They're going to enter the market too. So there's going to be more competition when rates come down. How long is that going to last and how far down are those rates going to come? Nobody knows. At the same time, you got to also weigh the fact that right now, if you aren't in a house, you're paying rent. How much money do you want to give to somebody else's mortgage versus investing in yourself? The stock market's at all-time highs, so you could always take that money that you're saving for renting and reinvest that if you're really good in the stock market. But we are also at all-time historical highs for the stock market. So how much longer can that go on? Nobody really knows. That's just my 2 cents for you buyers and sellers, where things are, where they're heading. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help any way I can. All my information is in the description below. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in the next video. But until then, stay safe, stay positive, and more importantly, stay free.